Hello my darlings, welcome to this video. I love the topic of this video. I love all of them. So this is very interesting. It's basically an understanding of the journey of life, or better said, the journey of lives in the human realm of consciousness. So, you know those people who always say things like, don't stress yourself, don't try to understand too much, God has a plan. Yeah. What is that plan? Like, okay, I get it. Yeah, don't stress yourself. Good. But not stressing yourself doesn't mean not knowing. It doesn't mean ignorance. Okay. Now, God's plan. It's actually a very simple way of understanding the plan. Looking at the skies. It's literally the zodiac. Now, before there are people who are, who would argue with me on that, I'm going to tell you a little story. And it's not a Christian story. It's a Hindu story. It's a story of creation, one of the stories of creation. And it's the story of the creation of the signs, of the zodiac signs, the constellations. And the story says, the myth says that the goddess herself, the divine feminine, the primordial goddess, decided to create the spirit of what we describe as the constellations, the zodiac signs. And basically she created the constellations. And this form of Shakti, this form of the divine goddess, is known as Aditi. So goddess Aditi is the mother of the skies. Well, she's the mother of creation, the mother of everything. And once you understand this, you understand that this is truly the map of life, the book of life, if you want to say so. Well, not exactly the book of life, that's something else. But this is I would call it the ladder of life. Even though we see it as a circle, because yes, like when we study astrology, it is a circle. But in terms of evolution, in terms of God's plan, it is a ladder of consciousness. So basically what happens is that human incarnations are nothing else but a stage of soul evolution. This is not the only stage of soul evolution. There are stages before and after the human one. So before souls get to experience the human life, a lot of souls have already gone through other types of incarnations, either on this planet or another, in lower forms of incarnation. They are not necessarily lower, but it's just the fact that in those stages of evolution as souls, they learn some things that they can, they are meant to learn those things in those stages of evolution. And then the human stage of evolution, they cannot learn the things that you can learn experiencing human life. You cannot necessarily learn those things being incarnate as a rabbit. You know what I mean. So it's basically about the amount of lessons that you can understand, that you can fully integrate in those stages of evolution. And the human stage of evolution is actually quite large. And it's exactly this one. It's conveyed through the zodiac. And another thing I want to point out is that in ancient Greece, the thinkers of ancient Greece, they used to say that humanity is at a different stage than animals because we have something that animals don't have, because we have speech. And the word for speech was logos, and it's actually, it means a lot. It means speech, it means words, it means language, it means reason. And the notion of logos was something very treasured by the ancient Greeks and their philosophy of life. And that's exactly why nowadays, when we're talking about one science or another, they all end with logi, because logi comes from logos. So psychology, astrology, I don't know. There are so many names for different sciences. I don't have all of these examples right now, but all of those names that end with logi in English, that comes from logos, because logos meant a lot in ancient Greek mentality. And that's why the Greeks said that we as humans, it's not okay to identify with the human thing, you know, because this is the thing, you're supposed to transcend it. But humans, that's why the Greeks said that humans are at a higher stage than animals, because humans have logos. Okay. So logos, by extension, can also be related to consciousness, because as a human, it's at least on this planet, is the last stage. So at this point, you as a soul are supposed to really integrate all that you have to integrate in terms of consciousness, in terms of understanding that you are a being with consciousness, with self-consciousness, and everything that derives from that. And that's exactly the point. In the human course of evolution, of soul evolution, you are supposed to master all of those things that derive from self-consciousness, from the ability to be aware of yourself. That's the starting point. The problem is that today, in the fallen age of humanity, in the stupid version of humanity, so many humans are not even fully self-aware. Like, you get so many examples, like narcissists, people who are really delusional, and they're not even in the starting point. They haven't really mastered the starting point. Leave aside anything else. So this is the stepping stone of the human evolution, of your evolution as a soul through the course of human experience. The first thing you have to master is self-awareness. The first zodiac sign is Aries. And in the natural zodiac, it's in the first house. Both the sign and the house relate to the self, the sense of self. The first house It's you, it's your body, it's your personality, your demeanor. You are supposed to understand that, to integrate that in your consciousness. Of course, you will have a different body, a different appearance, a different personality, more or less different personality throughout your different incarnations. But throughout all of those incarnations, you're supposed to master the sense of self, at least in the first stage of the human evolution as a soul. So in the first stage of your human incarnations, you are meant to learn, to really learn how to be aware of yourself and how to not be reactive. This is something that, like being reactive, falling prey to your own strong emotions such as anger, this can really lead to very bad things for other people. And this is one of the very bad things, the very bad consequences of human life, the fact that there is this possibility, and it's not only a possibility, it's actually a reality, having people that hurt other people. And Aries is also the sign of aggression. So through the first stage of human incarnations, you're supposed to master that, to overcome primary impulses. And Aries is also, it can also be a very animalistic energy. People with low vibing consciousness, when they exhibit Aries energy, they become very reactive, very aggressive, very angry, but in the very low version of Aries. And that's exactly why they hurt other people, because they feel threatened. Their sense of self, their false ego, their fragile ego gets attacked. That's how they perceive things. And that's why they become so reactive. This is basically narcissistic behavior and low consciousness behavior. So in the first stages of human incarnations, and mind you, it doesn't mean that you have to be an Aries. In all of the stages of your evolution as a soul, in the human reality, if you're in the Aries stage, it doesn't mean you have to be an Aries sun throughout all of those lifetimes, or that you have to be an Aries rising through all of those lifetimes. Even though the rising is a bit more powerful, so yes, you would kind of be an Aries rising for at least most of those lifetimes. But it's not a necessity that you would be an Aries sun or an Aries moon. Actually, it's quite... it's even more challenging if you're an Aries moon, because the moon rules the subconscious and the collective ego, the false ego that you inherit from the collective. So if you're an Aries moon, yeah, good luck. Good luck with mastering your emotions. And this is the problem. The fact that so many humans, so many human souls, and not only human souls, are stuck in this exact stage of evolution. It's unfortunately very hard to cross this threshold for so many souls. Actually, this is the exact stage where souls spend most of their lifetimes. The first stage, when they really have to understand and integrate full self-awareness and to really master that. And that's when you complete the Aries stage of your evolution. Aries is not about being aggressive. Aries is not about being at war with other people. That's the low manifestation of Aries. Aries and Mars, beautiful Mars, I love him. They are energies of empowerment, energies of strength, internal strength. This is beautiful. So yeah, this is the baby stage in terms of consciousness, in terms of human consciousness. And like I said, this is where most souls spend, actually not most, all souls who go through this type of evolution, this is where most incarnations are spent, in the exact first stage. And yeah, because it's very much tied to animalistic impulses as well. And you know, many souls have been animals before, like literally incarnate as animals, so they carry that with them. They carry those animalistic impulses and bodily drives that, you know, govern them more or less. So they have to overcome that, and they have to integrate a healthy sense of self. And most of all, the lesson of Aries and Mars is me, understanding me. This is a point when you understand yourself. You are supposed to really understand yourself. And that's exactly why so many souls fail at crossing the threshold, because they don't understand themselves. They go with the collective, they go with the patterns, they go with the traumas, they go with the brainwashing, they go with all of that. Everything that prevents them from actually looking at themselves, at their core, at who they are. And at this point in their evolution as a soul, is not really that much of an expanded human consciousness that they have. That is the first time they actually have human consciousness. Unless they have been humans before, but they failed so terribly, so miserably, that they were sentenced to go back to other stages of evolution as animals, as different animals, or even insects, and go back to that type of living, and only later come back to the human stage of evolution, because it was agreed by the gods and the goddesses that, whether you call them gods or goddesses, or call them angels, or call them whichever you want, the higher beings that guide soul evolution, it was sentenced, it was declared by them that that specific soul was not worthy of being in the human realm, where they could, like I said, quite literally hurt others. And if someone did that, if someone was incarnate as a human and time after time that's the only thing they did, and there was no intention of them to really get further, they are sentenced to go back. Well, actually, before that, they go through hell, because there is such a thing as hell. Actually, there are multiple hells. And they go through that to pay for what they did. And then when they come incarnate again, they are only allowed to come incarnate in lesser stages of consciousness. And after they graduate those stages again, only then they are allowed to come back to the human course of evolution again. in the first stage of human consciousness, which is Aries type of consciousness, integrating an Aries type of consciousness, but a healthy one. A healthy one where you are able to look at yourself for who you are and to look at your actions. Aries and Mars rule actions. So understanding yourself, understanding who you are, and really looking at what you do. Preferably why you do those things, but the Gemini stage is more about that. So yes, at this point in your evolution, you are supposed to master all of this, and it's a stage with many challenges, because you have to master courage. So it's a stage where you're a human for the first time. And things happen. And you have to understand what it means to be a human. You have to understand yourself and understand that there is such a thing as identity. Aries and the first house, they govern the notion of identity. And the verb of Aries is I am. So at this point, you really have to master the energy of I am. I am me. And Aries is an individualistic sign. And it's one of the signs of the ego. But this is the thing, you're supposed to understand what ego means. And supposed to understand that there is such a thing as a healthy ego. I'm not talking about the notion of ego that is all about me, no one else, just caring about myself, only myself, and being able to hurt others for my own sake and all of that. That's not what I'm talking about when I say healthy ego, because that's not healthy. When I say healthy ego, I mean understanding yourself, caring about yourself, putting yourself first in a healthy way, having boundaries, all of that. And this is actually quite hard to do in the human world, in a healthy way. Many times in this stage of evolution, there are souls who actually go to war, quite literally. It's also a stage of evolution where you master what it means to have a human body. So you will see souls who are athletes, they are really into sports, and they just really focus on their body, quite literally, their body. People who study the body, and all of that. And towards the end of this cycle, a lot of souls will go through challenges of the sorts of putting yourself first, like I said, in a healthy way, and really standing up for yourself and possibly even for others. Because when you are at the end of this stage, you're supposed to really master the Aries energy. You're supposed to be a warrior. And you're supposed to be able to stand up for something and fight for something. Fight for yourself. And for some souls, even for others. When you cross into the next stage of evolution, that's when life becomes a bit more beautiful. Because it's the Taurus stage of evolution. At this point, you will experience a lot of family life. Now, one thing, I want to say one thing more about the Aries stage of evolution. Many souls, when they are in this stage, they choose to come incarnate in really primitive communities that are very much warrior-like, one way or another. So imagine those hunter tribes or something like that, you know, like small communities, not really civilized that much, living more in communion with nature, so that when they come incarnate, it's not that much of a stretch, not that much of a difference from their previous incarnations, and they still dedicate themselves to more animalistic pursuits at first, such as hunting and surviving. So it actually starts quite interestingly for many souls. Many souls that, like I said, at this point of evolution, you will see them incarnate in such communities, and it's quite nice. And they are hunters or warriors. It's not a must that they are men throughout these lifetimes, even though there are, you know, in some societies you can't quite experience this kind of energy unless you are a man. But that's only in some societies, you know. That's why many choose more primitive communities, because in those communities you can be a hunter even as a woman. I don't know why I said it like that. Even as a woman, like as if we cannot be hunters. But there are communities throughout the timeline of humanity. There are communities, there were or are, depending how you want to phrase it, such communities where you can be a hunter, a warrior, both as a man and as a woman. Okay, and another thing is that in this stage of evolution, a lot of souls will understand how it is like to be children, human children, because they haven't been this kind of child before. And many souls will actually carry that with them throughout the course of kind of like the first 30 lives. The next stage of evolution, the Taurus stage of evolution, at this point a lot of souls choose to be women. And that's why I wanted to point out the difference when it comes to the Aries stage of evolution. Now, the fact that a lot of souls choose to be women in the Taurus stage of evolution, it's because you can't really experience Taurian things as a man, at least not that much. Taurus in itself is more of a feminine sign. It's ruled by Venus and the moon. And it's a sign of family life. It's a sign of pleasure. So the first stage of human evolution was a stage where they would be detaching from the animalistic impulses and understanding human experience. And then as a Taurus, you understand that even more. Now, another thing I want to point out is that there is an Aries stage of evolution for all like for all species, when they really understand what it means to come incarnate with that kind of body, those kind of muscles, all of that. So this kind of exists for all stages. The body stage. Now, Taurus is not a stage where you detach from the body. It's actually quite the opposite. It's a stage where you actually really experience the body even more. Because Taurus is a sign of the senses. Taurus is a sign of pleasure. So at this point, you understand human pleasure, especially sensual pleasures. And this is where sex has a lot to say. Because, you know, it is said that a lot of animals make sex, they have sex more, I don't know if impulsively would be the best word, more instinctually. Whereas humans and other beings such as dolphins, it's a different experience. It's a different sexual experience. The sexual act is not that instinctual anymore, or at least it's not supposed to be like that. That's why I said, like, a lot of souls struggle with crossing that threshold of really understanding more, of really expanding their consciousness. Because there are humans who have sex really, like some of them even worse than animals. So, yeah. At this point, starting with sex, you do things for pleasure. You don't do them in a masculine way anymore for the result of it, or simply for the natural impulses. You do them for the pleasure of the thing itself. So, like I said, sex, you do sex just because you want to do sex. Just for the pleasure of the thing itself, not only because of your bodily urges. And you're able to understand that. Arguably, some animals can understand that too, but humans don't know about that. Like, there are actually animals who communicate through telepathy. So, yeah. So at this point, you enjoy life. You enjoy your senses. You enjoy food. You don't eat food simply because you have to survive anymore. Oh, another thing I just downloaded. In this stage of evolution, a lot of souls will be carnivores. And it's literally impossible for them to detach from that. And that's their primary food, meat. That's their primary pleasure in terms of food. So, yeah. If someone is in love with meat, so much so, maybe they're still here. At this point in your soul evolution, you experience more pleasure, especially with food, and your whole food, your whole taste just expands. You are not such a fan of meat anymore. You love other foods a lot more. A lot of souls will like really fall in love with sweets at this point. But why not? They're good. And at this point, humans understand more the quality of goods and transactions. So what I mean by that is that this is a point when you understand that you have things. This is a point in your evolution, your consciousness evolution, where you understand that you own things. The verb of Taurus is I have. So you have things. Now, depending how good or bad people were in their first stage of evolution, some souls will actually struggle with money and materiality in their second stage of evolution if they were shitty people in their first stage of evolution. So when they were learning Aries lessons, if they were problematic people and if they accumulated a lot of bad karma for themselves, so much so that a lot of it has to be solved immediately. Because sometimes karma can be carried on through lifetimes, and let's say you accumulate bad karma in this stage, maybe you will solve it and dissolve it in this stage, or even this stage. It depends what kind of karma it is. But sometimes souls accumulate so much karma, and it's so serious and so, so bad that it actually needs to be dissolved immediately. Because if it's not, they will not be able to carry on go through the next stages of evolution. They need to dissolve that. They need to pay that karmic debt. So if they accumulated such type of karma in their first stage of evolution, they will have a lot of money challenges and problems with money, with positions, with their family as well in their second stage of evolution. And this is again another problem that humans have. Maybe they are able to cross the first threshold to understand the lessons of Aries. But when they go in the lessons of Taurus, if they didn't fully manage to understand the lessons of Aries in a healthy way, and throughout the course of their first stage of evolution, they only learned the lessons of Aries through bad experiences, through consequences, through harsh lessons. If that was the way they learned and integrated, then that's how it's gonna be in the Taurus stage as well. So what I said in the beginning, with a lot of souls experiencing a lot more pleasure in the second stage, is for the souls who actually do their homework and integrate Aries lessons in a healthy way. And they don't accumulate karma, at least not that much. So much so that they need to dissolve it right away. Because if that's the case, they will not experience pleasure in the Taurus stage. They will struggle with materiality. They will struggle with their family. And all of that. And again, they don't have to be Taurus risings, Taurus suns, or Taurus moons for that. I know someone. Oh, fuck. She has Capricorn in the second house. And she struggled with money, throughout the second part of her life, it's not that much of a struggle for her, even though that's still how she perceives it. And she always comes from a place of lack mentally, and she just had a lot of karma with her family, and she had to take care of everyone in her family, and all of that is just a very shitty life, and especially through the lenses of money, possessions, and family. That's basically her whole life. That's everything she focused on. And when I say family, I don't mean children. I mean the elder family, the parents and grandparents, but especially parents. This is kind of the nature of Taurus. Taurus is a sign of family, but it's not necessarily the family that you create. It's the family that you're born into. So this is the kind of family that we're talking about when we're talking about Taurus. So yeah, this is the second stage of human evolution. Now, if you are a good soul, more or less, but if you didn't collect that much karma, you will be able to experience pleasure in this stage of your evolution. Sometimes, some souls, remember what I said in the beginning, that there are souls who go through human lives, but they don't graduate thresholds and they have to go back to animal lives. Well, go to hell and then go back to animal lives, graduate those again, and then come back incarnate as a human. A lot of those souls, you will see them going through stage after stage after stage. They just fail miserably at all of them again. There are such souls. And it's mostly the unconscious people that you see in your daily life, especially the narcissists. Some of them have already been humans before. They have already crossed some thresholds, but they did such miserable things, such bad things, that they were downgraded. And when they came back incarnate as a human, they crossed the thresholds more easily because they already have experience. But this doesn't mean that they are good souls. This doesn't mean that they have good intentions. It doesn't mean that they come from love. They still carry evil with them. So even though they are in the second, third, or even fourth stage of human evolution, they are still bad, still like really, they carry evil with them. They are evil. And I don't care what all of those people say, you know, all those people in spiritual communities who say that you need to understand them and you need to be forgiving and tolerant. They are not evil. They just don't know what they do. They don't know any better. No, they know. They know what they do. If you think they don't, it means you don't understand human psychology. It means you don't know what narcissism is. It means you don't know. It's you, the one who doesn't know. If you think that people just don't know any better, no, they do. They just don't want to. They don't want to do that better. They want to sink even lower. So there's no such thing as they don't know what they do. Why do you think there is punishment for everything that people do? Okay, so the second stage, like I said, ideally, it should be beautiful. But you need to deserve that as a soul. You really need to deserve the beauty of Taurus. Because if you really deserve it, it can actually be a great time. A time when you're rich, a time when you have beautiful family relations, a time when you're even born into rich families and you inherit a lot of wealth from your family. It can happen. but you need to deserve that karmically. Okay, so the Taurus stage of evolution, like I said, it's understanding, it's basically an extension of Aries, because you're still working with your body, you're still understanding the senses and the material world. But like I said, it's a bit more beautiful because you're understanding the senses, and the senses can give pleasure. And the material world, we're talking about money, we're talking about possessions. And it's a stage that prepares you for interactions, human interactions. At this point, it's so the first stage was all about me, focusing on myself. This is kind of like a transition. It's a stage of itself, but we can also look at it through the lens of kind of like of a transition phase, because it's an extension of the Aries stage when we're talking about the bodily experience, because you're learning about the senses and the pleasures of the body. But it's also a stage that prepares you for what's next, because from starting with this point, you will be able to learn about interactions and relations, human relations, relating to others, and being reliable. It's a stage when souls learn how to be reliable. It's a first stage of learning responsibility, and it's an earthy stage. So the first stage is a stage when, first of all, Mars is one of your spirit guides, and the spirit of fire in the first stage, and you really have a lot of energy, resources, spirit-wise, because your soul, your spirit at that point focuses a lot on the individual that you are. So it really boosts you up. And actually a lot of souls in this stage of their lives, they have a lot of stamina. And a lot of souls in this stage, the first stage, they will actually, especially if they are hunters and warriors in more, in like smaller communities, more primitive communities, they will break their body many times. Because they need to understand what it means to heal the body. It's basically a stage of the body. So the body goes through a lot of things. It's also a time when a lot of women go through birth, like the birth experience in this stage is really a time when, again, you understand the body. Because it's a very, giving birth is not easy. And it can be very painful. So exactly because of that, it's again a very bodily experience that really anchors you in what it means to have a body and be in the body. And quite literally, birth is a very bloody experience. And this is another reason why it's not a must that you're a man in the first stage of evolution. Also, another thing is that in the first stage of evolution, you're very, like I said, all about me, and sometimes souls can be blindly selfish. And some souls can be very bossy, very dominant, or at least seek to be very dominant, But especially in the first lifetimes as humans, the nature of that for them will be again very instinctual. It's more of a thing of survival for them. They will go for that masculine energy of being the dominant one, but it's more through the lens of survival. Then in the Taurus stage of evolution, it's a time when souls incarnate as humans understand how to be a bit more docile, a bit more obedient, because it's a stage when you actually, is no longer a stage all about you. It's a time of you and your family. So at this point, your identity is not singular. It's a time when you actually identify with your family. And like it or not, this is a rule throughout this entire stage. The Taurus stage of soul evolution as a human, you will really identify with your family, whether it's for good or for bad. But like, you know, I suppose you've heard, at least you've heard examples, if you didn't literally saw people, but at least you've heard examples, like historically, people that, you know, they inherited such a family name and family identity that they were basically all about that. So that's kind of how it looks like. Yes, a lot of souls could actually be born in very influential families. And that's exactly why they will choose to identify with the family. But sometimes they can actually be born in very poor families, but they will still identify with the family. If the name of the family is not such a powerful and influential name to be able to identify with that, they will identify with the conscious identity of the family. So let's say the family has been poor for generations, that person will identify with that. The family has been like this or like that for generations, that person will identify with that. And it's really a stage where you should be able to master this, and at least towards the end of this stage, have that process of identifying with the family be a bit more of your own will, less subconscious, less coming out of fear, and more coming out of love and your own will. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. It's the free will universe. So it's a stage, it's the first stage where you have human interactions, human relationships, but they are family relationships. You will focus on your family, primarily your family of origin. And sometimes some souls will actually even have to fight for the heritage of their family. Let's say someone is born a princess or a noble lady, and she has to be married into another family. So she will become part of another family. But somehow she will fight for the identity of her birth family. So let's say, you know, the Princess of York marrying the Tudor king. she is married into the Tudor dynasty, but she is still part of the York family. And that, you know, she's all about that. And she fights for that. She fights for her York heritage more than for her new Tudor identity. That's one example of how it can happen. And actually in such examples of noble families, you know, marriage was politics for them. And sometimes, like, really, their family identity could really cause wars with one another. That, again, can happen in the Taurus stage of evolution. Unfortunately. But, yeah, things happen. So, the pleasures of your body and the material world, positions as well. Positions can also give you pleasures. Status. This is another thing that you learn in this stage of evolution. How status happens, what it means, and what it gives you. Or what it gives others. Whether you're a person with status, thanks to your family, or you're a person without status, but you see others that you are under them because of their status, you will see these dynamics in this stage of evolution. And you will also see these dynamics in your family life. Because, again, we're talking about the family of origin. So, you know, we have elders, we have parents, you're the child, you know, it's kind of a lifetime, well, not a lifetime, there are more lifetimes, where people learn respect. They learn how to respect others, but more so through the lens of authority figures. And it's the first time you meet authority figures and you meet them in your family. Again, the elders of your family, whether it be your grandparents or parents. But a lot of souls in this stage of evolution will actually have to respect their elders. Some of them will do it naturally, some of them will learn to do it one way or another. But like I said, ideally, it's a stage of evolution where you don't really have to worry about survival. Ideally. And a stage of evolution where you step more into the benefits that the material world can give you. So it's a stage of evolution where you learn how to love the material world, because it's a time when the material world is no longer an enemy like it used to be in the Aries stage of evolution, or in times when you were incarnate as an animal, where you literally had to survive in the wilderness. The Taurus stage of evolution, it's a stage when you also understand civilization, when you understand what a human community offers, but always you understand things through the lens of your family. That's the primary focus. Okay. And again, coming with status, let's say you were born in a wealthy family, you understand luxury, and you you have beautiful clothes and all of that, you know. You can even be provided for, stuff like that. And food, lots of food. At least in the midpoint of this stage of evolution, you can picture a lot of cakes. You can actually, a lot of people can actually be, what's the word? chef, but not chef, this is more like a modern, nowadays thing, like a cook. You can be a cook and actually a lot of souls choose that, and like 70% of the souls who go through this stage of evolution, at least one time, they are a cook. Whether that happens in modern times or historical times, you know. Also gardeners and farmers. Being a farmer is another dynamic where you can really see this, you know, it's another version of the Taurus dynamics displaying, you know, their lessons. Because let's say you're born into a family of farmers and you continue that, and you also give that further to your children. So whether we're talking about lifetimes when you're born into wealthy families that experience more civilization, to say so, status, or you're born into a family of farmers, you experience, you're basically in direct contact with the earth, and you mend the richness of the earth. And it's a lifetime, with a stage of lifetimes when you really benefit from the earth, the material world. And Venus and the moon are part of your spirit team in this stage of evolution, and the spirit of earth, the element of earth. Some people could even have inns throughout this stage of evolution, you know, like medieval inns, INNS, like places where you can go and like sleep there for a night or two, and they also have food there and drinks and all of that. Yeah, you can be someone who owns such kind of a place. And actually a lot of the souls who are in this stage of evolution, a lot of their lifetimes are in the middle leaves. Because in the middle leaves, this is exactly what was happening. You were either a farmer or a noble person, but in either case, you could not get out of the identity of your family. If you were born a farmer, you were meant to still be a farmer. If you were born a noble person, that was what you were for the rest of your life. So it's, again, something, the whole notion of Taurus, of identifying with your family and perpetuating the identity of your family. So yes, the middle leaves big time for this stage of evolution. Some souls who do not need incarnations, or do not need incarnations anymore, some can come incarnate through the lens of Taurus, through the portal of Taurus, but they will experience this in the highest realm of Taurus. So we're not talking about this as one of the first stages of evolution here. I just want to say that sometimes in places like Lemuria, places like Atlantis, and even other planets, you will see souls who come incarnate. Imagine Elrond in The Lord of the Rings, you know? That's basically one of the highest expression of it's the highest expression of Taurus energy. But those souls, either they don't need to come incarnate and they just come incarnate because they are needed, either they don't need to come incarnate anymore. They were at one point in the cycle of life and death, and now they come back because they are needed. But because they have such good karma, they come incarnate in a state that really benefits them materially because they deserve it. Okay. Yeah, and a lot of beauty. This is also a stage of human soul evolution where people may be very much appreciated for their beauty. And it's a stage of evolution where people develop a taste for beauty. And many souls, especially if they come incarnate as men in such lifetimes, they will be head over heels for beautiful women. They will just love and adore them. And the mother archetype. This is also a stage of evolution where the mother archetype has a lot to say, for the good or for the bad, but has a lot of power over you, over your body and life and the course of your life. And sometimes a lot of decisions will actually be guided, if not fully taken for you, by your mother or a maternal figure. And yeah, I personally don't agree with that, but you know, sometimes it happens. Now, if it's a loving soul and it's literally for your good, then okay, yeah. But I still believe in the freedom of choice. Yeah. Okay. And this is also life when the spirit alive. I don't know why I keep saying alive. A stage of lifetimes when the earth herself, Gaia herself, is one of your primary guides. So it's not just part of your spirit team. She's actually one of your primary spirit guides. And that's exactly why the mother archetype is so powerful in your life. If souls in this stage of evolution would be aware of the fact that they are in this stage of evolution, and if they would honor the mother archetype, not just the mother in their families, but the goddess, the Gaia herself as the mother archetype, then that would turn out great for them. That would actually benefit them as souls significantly. Because we're talking about human souls here. I'm not talking about starseeds. If you're a starseed, your course of evolution was more or less different depending on your home planet. And literally the sky is there. Right now, I'm talking about human souls, because this is the map of evolution for human souls. These are the constellations that we see from Earth. So this is exactly why I'm saying that if a soul in this stage of evolution, if they would be aware of the fact that they are in this stage of evolution, and if they were to connect to Gaia, this would benefit them a lot. Because it would actually be the first time they consciously connect to Gaia in this way. Because remember, in this stage of evolution, it was Mars that was the guiding force and the spirit of fire. Right now, it's Gaia herself. In this stage of evolution, they have a different connection to her, a more personal, a more intimate connection to Gaia. So they can literally connect to her a lot and receive a lot of downloads, a lot of guidance from her. And she would really be able to help them move through life more beautifully and more potently, so that they don't accumulate that much karma. So that they really move beautifully through life, and especially through this cycle of incarnations. This is beautiful. And for the next ages of humanity, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe what I'm saying now, it's gonna survive. And people are gonna be aware of this, and people are gonna go to psychics, and those psychics will maybe be able to tell people if they are in one or the other stage of evolution. And if they are in this particular stage, they would be able to actually connect to Gaia. There are 2 stages of evolution where you can deeply connect to Gaia. And it's the Taurus and then the Crab stages. It's only these 2 when you can literally commune with her. Not just spiritually, but also on a bodily level. Because you literally can incarnate through those portals. And for those reasons, these are the stages of life, of human lives, when you understand the lessons that she is here to provide for you. And she is more than willing to be your spirit guide. And again, if you are a human soul, do check out what stage you're in. Okay. I constantly feel like I should move to the next stage, but at the same time I feel like there's more to say. Now, truthfully, there's always more to say about each of those stages. I really want to cover everything. That's why sometimes I even keep repeating myself. So I feel like there's more there. I want to go to the next stage of evolution, but I just feel like there's more here. Okay, so hopefully I'm getting it. It's also a stage when a lot of people will be normal. What I mean with that is that they will follow the collective. Unfortunately. Again, it's not a stage when souls master individuality. It's a stage when they learn to be a bit more obedient, a bit more receptive, and a bit more laid back. And they're basically not incarnate to change the world. On the contrary, they are incarnate to really perpetuate the state of the current world that they came into. So if someone is incarnate in this stage of their soul evolution, do not expect them to be able to understand things on a society level, on a philosophical level, on those great levels of thinking. That's not what they are here for. They're here to be normal, to understand the body again, to continue the lessons of understanding the body, to experience family life, to integrate lessons that have to do with family life. And sometimes they can go through shit. Like, you know, those people who just, their families could be the worst people of all, but they will still defend their families. Yeah, they're stupid, but you cannot change them. So a lot of souls in this stage of evolution, they will be quite normal. They will be part of the crowd. They're not here for the power of thought. They're not here to expand their mind. They're here to be Taurian. And Taurus is not one of the signs of geniuses. So yeah. If the evolution of humanity is great, then they are moving in a great direction. But if the evolution of humanity is not great, if the collective sucks, they will suck as well. This is one of the not so great parts of this. But yeah, who knows? Who knows what they will be able to do later on in their stages of evolution. Unfortunately, they need this, and basically it's baby steps. It's like souls really have to take things, sometimes even one at a time. And I was talking with my spirit team the past few days, and what I got is that some souls spent even 80 lifetimes for just one lesson. For just one lesson. That's how stupid some human souls can be. So yeah, they move very, very slow. It's not that the fact that they move very, very slow, it's just the fact that they don't have it in them to move at all. Even slow movement is still movement. But some human souls really don't move at all. They don't really want to change the paradigm in any kind of way. Well, yeah, what can you do? Okay, so again, this is a stage of evolution where they are pretty normal. The notion of normal being that they are part of the crowd. They want to be perceived as normal. And it's not the fact that they want to be perceived as normal. They don't even think of those things. Their family life, that's it. That's how far they can look. The first stage of evolution, the length to which the soul could look at life was the limit of their own personality, of their own life, of their own essence. Then in the second stage of evolution, the limit to which a soul can see is the limit of their own family life, their own family structure. Now, the third stage of evolution. Okay, now I feel like I really said it all. I'm glad. Now, the third stage of evolution, I love this. This is a time when it shifts. Because at this point, the soul is not identifying with their family anymore. And actually, it's a stage of evolution. If you manage to cross these two, these are the ones that take the most for souls. This Taurus stage of evolution also takes a long time for souls to master, because this is a point when a lot of souls can actually fall prey to materialism. They can really just fall into that so much so that they neglect their spirit and they neglect everything else, and they just limit themselves to materialism so much that that's what they want for the rest of their existence, and that just cannot happen. So yeah, for the stage of Aries, it's so hard to cross the stage of Aries because it's internally hard. It's actually, it does involve some psychological development to be able to be fully self-aware and to look at your actions and be responsible for your actions and really be in line with, your actions in a healthy way, and not just, react and be all explosive and mindless. And this, unfortunately, is very hard for a lot of people. But then again, the next stage, for a lot of people, it's very hard to cross the threshold of that stage because they don't want to renounce the thirst for material pleasures and material life and money and all of that. It sucks. But the moment souls cross these two thresholds, that's when it shifts, and everything from that point onwards will move a lot faster. All the lessons that you have to learn through the rest of the stages, it will happen differently. It's just the first two stages that are the hardest for human souls. If as a human soul you manage to cross the thresholds of the first two stages, you get into the Gemini stage, and this is a powerful stage for your consciousness because it's exactly a realm of consciousness. Gemini is a sign of consciousness, and it's not the consciousness of that or the consciousness of that. No, it's just consciousness. It's a stage in your soul evolution where you really understand what it means to understand, when you think about what it means to think. And this is beautiful. I love this. Well, I'm a Gemini myself, so obviously I love this. But the primary essence of this stage is why. You will understand to think, and you will understand to ask the question, why? And this is powerful. As a soul, as a self-aware soul, as an individual being of the free will universe, the moment you start this, that's it. Your soul evolution just becomes a highway. This is the stage you have to reach. The stage of why. Why am I here? Why is this happening? Why? Now, the first bit of the Gemini stage, it won't necessarily be a very philosophical course of lifetimes, because it's the first time souls really do this, really become masters of their own thoughts. In the first bit, the first half, or the first third of the Gemini stage of evolution, a lot of souls will just have to learn how to train their thoughts. And sometimes, for some souls, this can even happen by learning languages. It's a time when a lot of people will learn languages. They will go on a lot of trips, they will just read a lot, they will be very childish, and they will have a lot of curiosity. The souls of the first two stages, they're not really defined by curiosity, especially the ones in the Taurus stage. Those do not count on them for that. They don't want to learn new stuff. This is Taurus. Taurus doesn't want to learn new stuff that they were not taught when they were young. Taurus is comfortable, in the comfort zone. Thus, the Gemini stage of evolution is a crucial stage for your development as a soul when it comes to your consciousness. It's the point when you learn to think for yourself, to really think for yourself. It's not a point when you think the way you were taught, like in the Taurus stage. People who are in the souls who are in the Taurus stage of evolution, they really think the way they were taught to think. Taurus is a sign that really acts the way it was taught to. Acts and thinks the way it was taught to. Gemini, no, not really. And for some souls, especially if they come incarnate as men, in the first 3 lifetimes, if a soul makes the mistake of coming incarnate as a man for the first 3 lifetimes of this particular stage of evolution, they will be doomed by the speed of their own thoughts and the power of their own thoughts. It's not something that they have experienced before. And the speed at which their thoughts will go is like their thoughts have a personality of their own that they're not really able to tame, to master yet. So they will struggle with that. But if a soul is wise enough to take this advice from elder souls and to do this little hack of coming incarnate as a woman in the second life of this stage of evolution, they will have a lot more chances of succeeding and not being tortured by their own thoughts. Because if you only come incarnate as a guy, in the first bit of this stage of evolution, you will be tortured by your own thoughts. You really have to put the key there, and the key is literally being a woman. I love this. Okay. some souls can act very childish in the first part of this stage of evolution. Some souls, if they're not really great with morals, they can be really, let's just say, they won't know what loyalty is, unfortunately. This is one of the faults, not faults, one of the flaws of this energy sometimes. But once someone does have a bit more morals, this stage is awesome. It's great. Because, like I said, it's the time when you learn how to think. And a lot of times you will see, just like in ancient Greece, philosophers always had students. And not just philosophers, even, well, not even, mostly spiritual figures throughout the past of humanity. They had students as well, whether they used this word or not. Those people were kind of like students of what those teachers were talking about. This is what you'll be doing in this stage of evolution. At first, the first lifetimes will be lifetimes when you will be focused on having a job. And through that job, you will learn how to train your mind. So it's either a job as a smith, a job as, I don't know, you'll be working with your hands, or a job where you're a teacher, or you just go to a lot of places, you meet people from a lot of cultures, you learn languages. You can even be a dancer. Just very childish things. But once you learn how to speed up your mind and really ask questions and really sit with that, you will really have a great time throughout this stage of evolution. This is not like the Taurus stage where you can have a great time if you deserve it. I believe that everyone will have a great time in the Gemini stage of evolution, regardless of deservability. Because this is not about it's not a thing of having wealth. It's not like Taurus, the Taurus stage. You can really have a great time there if you deserve it, because it's about actual material wealth. Whereas in the Gemini stage of evolution, it's very internal. It's very ironic, because the stages of evolution that are, stages of masculine energy, those are actually very internal stages. As a soul, when you go through those stages, Aries stage, Gemini stage, there are a lot of changes for you as a soul internally. Whereas in more feminine stages of evolution, like Taurus, there are actually external factors, a lot of external factors, and Taurus is a feminine sign. But these are just the first stages. Okay, so in the Gemini stage, like I said, a lot of mental shifts. It's the first stage of your soul evolution where you really understand the power of mentality, the power of thought. And a lot of souls in this stage of evolution, they will actually be scribes. And they will learn a lot through being scribes. Actually, being scribes is right in the midpoint of this stage of evolution. Throughout the later, the last third of this stage of evolution, you could even become teachers of one sort or another. But yeah, it's a fun time because you think, you have fun with your mind, and you discover a lot of things mentally. Some souls can even become scientists, researchers of different fields of knowledge. But it's basically a stage of evolution that really is about knowledge. This will be your food. You will live for that, quite literally, as a soul. And obviously Mercury is one of your primary spirit guides. I say one of your primary spirit guides because as an individual soul, your spirit team, you have an angel of your own, like a guardian angel. And then your spirit team consists of different beings that are there for one reason or another. But throughout different stages of soul evolution, you may have different souls in that spirit team. And those souls, their level of importance can change. So in this stage of evolution, Mercury is your primary spirit guide, or at least one of your primary spirit guides. And this is fun. Mercury is amazing. It's also a stage of evolution where you will understand change. And for the second stage of human soul evolution, change is a terrifying thought, a very terrifying thing. Because in the second stage, the Taurus stage, Taurus is not an energy of change. On the contrary, Taurus is an energy of preserving things the way they are. Again, Taurus is very similar to Crab. Both of them are ruled by the moon. Taurus is ruled by Venus and the moon. So both of them just want to stay in the comfort zone, regardless of how detrimental that comfort zone is, regardless of how many bad things derive out of that comfort zone. They don't care. They just want to stay in the comfort zone. They're far too afraid of change. In the Gemini stage of evolution, you will understand change and the power of change. The challenging thing is that in the first 3 lifetimes, and especially the first 2 lifetimes of the Gemini stage of evolution, a lot of those changes will happen for you. A lot of those changes will not be decided by you. They will be just like the Tower energy, the Tower in Tarot. If you know Tarot, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know, don't worry. The Tower card basically talks about divine intervention, creating a sudden shift, such a change that it's irreversible. But sometimes, for some souls, this kind of event, it can seem a lot like a crisis. But it's actually a blessing in disguise because it creates a change that you need. But you are not planning on it as a human. You are not planning on that. But you need that change. So that's why it's a blessing in disguise. So the first 2 lifetimes of the Gemini stage of evolution, they will have powerful Tower moments. And especially 3 times in those first 2 lifetimes, there will be major Tower moments. You will have 3 Tower moments in those first 2 lifetimes that really just drastically shift everything for your own benefit. But sometimes, because, you know, those souls have not yet experienced that much change throughout their course of evolution, they will not understand. They won't understand this. They won't understand that those changes happen for them. They will think that they're happening to them. So they won't quite take it as a positive, because they're not really trained in decision making that has a lot to do with change. By the end of the Gemini stage of evolution, as a soul, you should master change. You should be comfortable with change. You should be aware of the fact that change comes to benefit you. You should be not only aware of that, but also very much someone who likes change and changes things by themselves and doesn't need divine intervention for that. But for that, there needs to be a lot of internal change. And that internal change happens throughout the course of the stage of evolution in terms of your mindset, in terms of your mentality. It's a mind shift. And I love this. And it's a time in your course of soul evolution where your consciousness really expands. This is a time in your soul evolution where you learn how to really hold more things into your consciousness, more knowledge into your consciousness, how to really have more data stored into who you are, basically. And this is amazing. I love this. It's a superpower. Okay, and just a lot of fun. And another thing with the Gemini stage of evolution, you will meet a lot of people. But it's not a stage when you develop strong connections. It's not a stage of connections. But it is a stage of a lot of interactions. Because remember, this is not... So we're talking about a course of soul evolution. So when a soul is in this stage of their lifetimes, they haven't really mastered emotional depth. That will come later. At this point, they have only gone through the Aries stage and the Taurus stage. They have only experienced and mastered relationships in the structure of their own family. Family relationships. That's the kind of relationships they have mastered. Now, in the Gemini stage of evolution, they will meet a lot of people. They will get outside of their family realm, and they will just meet a lot of people. Their family is no longer that important to them, that it just literally dictates their whole life. They have more freedom for themselves and also freedom of movement. So this is why this kind of incarnation happens in areas and times when you can do that. You know, the Middle East, for example, for Taurus, those were really conservative times, and times when you couldn't really move outside of your social status. In the Gemini stage of evolution, it's no longer the case for that. You need movement, and you need change, and you need knowledge. You need to come incarnate in such places and in such times when you really have access to knowledge. And you're allowed to do that, and you're allowed to meet a lot of people. You need to meet a lot of people. Those connections will not last. Maybe 1 or 2, but you just have to do that in those lifetimes in order to accustom yourself with basically the existence of people, of other people, of so many other people, and the fact that they have opinions, and the fact that they also think. And you will talk to them, and you will change, and you will exchange opinions. It's a time of dialogue as well. So again, you will meet a lot of people in those lifetimes. It's no longer a time of family structure. It's a time of just expanding yourself. So you will expand your mental limits, basically, through all of this, through all of the experiences that you are gonna have, through all of the relationships, and not just relationships, but also acquaintances and just interactions, human interactions. It is a time of human interactions. You will talk a lot, you will hear a lot, read a lot. It's basically beautiful. I love it. Okay. It's amazing. And again, you will get to know a lot. And this knowledge also happens through travel. So yeah, I love it. And it's fast. It's fast moving. Your lifetimes in this stage of evolution, they may not be significantly fewer, but they will move fast. You will move fast through those lifetimes. The lessons of the previous lifetimes are usually harder to integrate. And for one lesson, you need more lifetimes. But in the Gemini stage of evolution, people can integrate even 3 lessons in just one lifetime. That's amazing. It's powerful. It's a great shift. Because again, you train your knowledge, you train your mind, so it's no longer that much of a divide between your soul consciousness and your human consciousness. It's a time when your soul consciousness and human consciousness get closer. This is beautiful. The ancient myth of the sign of Gemini, it's basically a pair of twins, but one of them is mortal and the other twin is immortal. This is significant, and it's really seen in the nature of the Gemini course of lifetimes. When, like I said, your human mind, you learn to expand your human mind and what it can contain in itself, so much so that you're able to bring yourself by your human existence closer to your divinity, to your divine essence, to your divine twin self, to say so, to your soul self. You're able to do that for yourself, to make that shift for yourself, and everything will happen a lot faster. And obviously the spirit of air is there with you, and by extension all the deities that have to do with the power of thought and consciousness. So no wonder in ancient mythology, Mercury, beloved Mercury, was named the messenger of the gods. So unlike in previous stages of evolution, where you really had to focus on one thing and simply the nature of that stage of evolution, in the Gemini stage of evolution, you're able to focus on everything you want. It's literally, this is the nature of Gemini, being curious about everything. And And thanks to the fact that Mercury is your primary spirit guide in those lifetimes, you can really connect to any deity you want, and you can even go as far as connecting to the primary goddess herself, Shakti herself. Mercury is her baby, her son. And also God, the divine masculine. But I am, you know, I support the feminine approach. But if you want, you can literally connect to any deity you want. You can become very eclectic in those lifetimes. So if we're talking about spirituality, in the Aries stage of evolution, especially in those lifetimes when you come incarnate in more primitive communities, again, it's a bit more of a primitive practice of spirituality where there's a shaman in the community or a priest of some sorts, but you yourself will not be doing the spiritual practices. And then you will be exposed to them. You can very easily be exposed to them during the Aries lifetimes. But like I said, you won't be doing them. The Taurus lifetimes, the Taurus stage of evolution is a stage where, like I said, you will experience very dogmatic things. Spirituality may also be very dogmatic in those lifetimes. And you can even experience Christianity in those lifetimes, like the official version of Christianity, or just any kind of, like a really rigid tradition of spirituality that your family has been practicing for generations, and you really have to go with that. And you cannot go outside of that. But it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when society sucks. But it can be a good thing. Because again, the souls in this stage of evolution, they don't really have that much experience as humans. So they need to learn. And the way they learn in this stage of evolution is through their family and the practices of their family. So that's why, you know, there needs to be patience with those souls, because they are learning how to be human. And they will inherit the values of their family and really live according to those. And they will never go outside of those, as long as they are in that stage of evolution. Maybe slightly, sometimes, if those values are very detrimental, and it's really causing something bad for them. But not really. I mean, that rarely happens, and it's just slightly. So the kind of spiritual practice that their family had, they will have that as well, and they will pass it to their children. In the Gemini lifetimes, in the Gemini stage of evolution, you will experience everything. And you will be curious for everything that the human lives have to offer, especially in terms of consciousness. And you will just collide with a lot of lines of thought. So you can really determine which one is aligned with you, which one you fall into a line with. And in terms of spirituality, in this stage of your lifetimes, you will be very eclectic. Like I said, Mercury is your primary spirit guide. Actually, for the other stages of evolution, I said that it's though Mars and Venus and the Moon are part of your spirit team, and they are part of your primary spirit guides. And it was natural to say that, but when it comes to the Gemini stage of evolution, I keep saying that Mercury is your primary spirit guide. He's not just one of the primary spirit guides. He is literally the primary spirit guide. And this is amazing, and I love this. So, thanks to this amazing thing that Mercury is your primary spirit guide, you can literally connect to any other deity because he is the messenger of the gods. I love this. And he is a teacher himself. He is a guru. I love him. And, Ganesha, God Ganesha, is the highest consciousness of Mercury. So basically, gods and goddesses can come incarnate as suns and planets. And you can argue with me on that one. Ganesha is Mercury. But Ganesha himself, like when we're talking about Mercury, we're literally talking about Mercury, the planet Mercury, and who he is for this solar system and the role he plays in this solar system. But he, the soul, who is the planet Mercury, is not just for this solar system. He is a divine being himself, and he plays so many roles throughout existence. And he is Ganesha. I love him. Amazing, he's amazing. And you can be very eclectic. You can study religions and lines of spirituality and all sorts of teachings. And like I said, you can literally connect to any deity you want through the course of these lifetimes. It's fantastic. And you can open up your consciousness, your human consciousness, to divinity like that, and to connection with divinity. Remember, one of the twins is immortal and the other twin is immortal. So you can really use the power of Gemini for that. It's amazing. You can really have so many benefits from this stage of evolution. Once you master this, and I want to point something out. It's very easy to graduate this stage of evolution. Like I said, it's knowledge is so natural for this stage of evolution that souls can even integrate 3 lessons in just one lifetime. You really have to, like, some souls do need to repeat. Some souls do need to take 2 lifetimes for a lesson in this stage of evolution, but that only happens for lazy souls, like souls who just really don't enjoy this. They don't really enjoy knowledge. And change. So those are souls that are really dogmatic themselves, and they need basically comfort zones. But other than that, it's a fantastic stage of evolution. It happens fast, and I said previously that lifetimes, the number of lifetimes is not necessarily fewer. The reason for that is not that because it's not because souls need to repeat lessons from lifetime to lifetime, but because this is such an amazing stage of evolution that it's literally a stage of knowledge. So there is a multitude of lifetimes, but it's not because souls fail the lessons. It's because souls really develop a taste of curiosity and a taste for knowledge. So they crave that, and they themselves just need that and claim that. And they have many lifetimes in this stage of evolution really to learn, to expand their mind to many realms of knowledge and consciousness. So the reason there are many lifetimes in the first two stages, it's because in those stages it's really hard to master those lessons, to integrate them, and to graduate those lessons. So that's why you need many lifetimes. But in the Gemini stage, you take many lifetimes because it's an awesome stage with many experiences. So it's not because you fail, but it's because you learn a lot. And you yourself as souls just claim that. And just want those lifetimes, want more lifetimes in this particular stage of evolution. Because you understand knowledge and you claim knowledge. And it's beautiful. It's an amazing time of empowerment as souls, this particular stage of evolution. I love it. And congratulations to all souls who graduate, get to this level, and get through this level, and graduate this level as well. And actually, this level will always stay with you once you integrate it. Because it's Gemini, it's the realm of consciousness, it's the energy of thoughts and of thinking and of consciousness itself. It's amazing. I love it. I love Mercury. Okay. Beautiful. This is beautiful. I love it. It's amazing. It's a time of blessings, basically. Then the next stage, it's a stage where you once again become more grounded, because it's the time of the goddess Gaia. It's the sign of the crab. So at this point, oh, by the way, in the Gemini stage of evolution, it can happen that souls do not have they don't have families of their own. So they will not have children. They will just live life for their own. It's not a rule. It's not a must. It just happens. It's a bit more... this allows them to experience things differently. They can also have children. But it's just easier for them to not have children and integrate those lessons rather than to have children. This is where everyone has children. And this is a time of children. This is a time at the crab and moon / Gaia time of incarnations. It's a time when, again, you are connected to Gaia. The moon is actually part of Gaia. There was a time when there was no moon, and Gaia herself just spat out a piece of her. That basically, it is said that it was a time when the consciousness of the collective was falling so hard into negativity that Gaia just couldn't take it, and she had to really rapture a part of herself and just spit it out. And that's the moon. So the moon is literally part of Gaia's body. And arguably, all moons could be that. I really feel like all moons are that. Just part of the body of the planet that was just thrown out a bit for a reason or another. And when you think of this, it's actually interesting to look at planets who have multiple moons, you know. But that's another topic. So the moon is part of Gaia's body, and the sign of the crab is literally the sign of Gaia. This I got this knowledge intuitively so long ago, and I keep repeating it because it's a powerful piece of knowledge. Talking about knowledge, you know. If we were incarnate on another planet of the solar system, we would have Gaia, part of the planets in the sky, you know, and the sign that she'd be governing would be crab. Or if on that planet the name of the sign is not the same, just the energy in itself is the same, it'd be the sign that is the equivalent of what we call the zodiac sign of the crab. It's basically the energy of family, but your own family, the family you make, and your house, and your sense of stability, your sense of structure in the world, and your sense of roots. It's not just the family you make, it's not just children, it's family in itself, yes, just like the large notion of family, but with a very high focus on your children. And the crab is the archetype of the mother in the zodiac, and Gaia herself is known as the mother goddess. So throughout this course of lifetimes, this stage of soul evolution, you really need to have children in order to understand what it means to be a parent. It's not a must that you are a woman throughout all of these lifetimes. It's just the fact that you need to be a parent, and you really need to master that. That is the key element of this stage of evolution, the fourth stage of human evolution. It's the time when you are a parent. And you have solid foundation for that, because in the previous stage of evolution, you were learning and learning and learning and learning. And now you have to teach others, your children, in this next stage of evolution. You really have to take care of others. Now, this doesn't mean that you didn't do that before in previous lives. You definitely did it, but more unconsciously. In this stage of evolution, the primary focus is your children, and there's a lot of karma there. You will collect a lot of karma through the relationship you have with your children in those particular lifetimes. And any kind of karmic debt that you have from the previous two lifetimes, stages of lifetimes, the Aries and Taurus lifetimes, you will definitely need to pay a lot of those karmic debts before you get into the next stage of evolution. Because the next stage of evolution is literally, it gives the start to a new cycle. Because we have fire, earth, air, water. And then we have fire again, earth, air, water. So basically there are three main segments, and in each of those segments we have the four elements. So before you get into the next segment that starts with Leo, you need to purify yourself a little bit. Water is an element of purification. In the physical world as well, we wash ourselves with water. So spiritually, whenever you are in a water stage of lifetimes or a water lifetime, you need to purify karma. You need to do it. And that's exactly why you chose water for that lifetime. Like it or not, many times the way karma is purified, it's not nice, because it's, you know, it's bad karma. So you really have to pay the debt. So in this particular stage of soul evolution, the lifetimes you're gonna have here, you will need to pay karma, but it's not particularly intense the way you do that. You do that in a more beautiful way. If you have heavy karma from your first cycle, from your first stage of soul evolution, the Aries stage, like I said in the beginning, you will need to pay the heaviness in the next immediate stage, in the Taurus stage. You cannot go further with a lot of heaviness. You just cannot, because the next stage is Gemini. You need to be light for that. So where there is earth, there is heaviness. So you need to pay the heaviness in the earth lifetimes. It's not the water lifetimes where you really need to pay the heaviness. That's the earth lifetimes. So granted, you paid those debts in the Taurus lifetimes. You will go through the Gemini lifetimes, which are beautiful because it's air, it's light. You have to be light yourself as a soul. You have to be compatible with the element of air. Okay? That's why you need to pay those karmic debts in the Taurus lifetimes. Then, when you get into the crab lifetimes, if you still have karma, ideally it should be karma collected from the Gemini stage. So there's kind of a rule here. You have a masculine stage of evolution and then a feminine stage. The point is that if you collect heaviness in the masculine stage of evolution, you need to pay it right away in the next stage of evolution, which is feminine. The reason for this is because the goddess herself, the primordial goddess herself, Shakti, she is not a soul of forgiveness. The divine masculine, Shiva, Christ. Argue with me on this one, I don't care. Shiva is Christ. The divine masculine, Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, the soul who came incarnate as Jesus of Nazareth, is literally the divine masculine himself, the primordial divine masculine. I don't care what anyone else says. And he also came incarnate as Shiva long ago, very long ago. And one of his attributes is forgiveness. The attributes of the goddess, though, are not forgiveness. The goddess does not forgive. The goddess knows what you did wrong to others in past lifetimes, and she's not happy with that. She doesn't forgive. She is the ultimate authority when it comes to karma, and she does not allow things to pass unpaid. There needs to be justice, there needs to be balance, and what you did will be done to you. It's a law. She'll never let that be forgiven. So that's exactly why you pay karma in the feminine cycles, because she's the ultimate authority on that, the divine feminine herself. There are other beings in existence that carry this, that are their duties involve making sure that souls pay karma. But she's the ultimate authority. And she's the one who created the law of karma, or the laws of karma. I love this. I love justice. Okay. So, ideally, when you are in the crab stage of evolution, you should only or mostly have karma from the Gemini stage of evolution. You shouldn't have that much, like, if by this point a soul is so shitty that they really collected karma throughout all of their cycles, and they are allowed a chance at the crab cycle, and they still collect karma, they still do mean, they're not allowed to pass any further. They will be interrupted at the midpoint of the Taurus, of the crab stage of evolution, and they will be thrown back. Because really, why would they be allowed any further? If they were given chance after chance through all of the stages of evolution, and they really don't do anything about, becoming a beautiful soul, sorry, but no, you're not allowed to pass. You shall not pass. And it's exactly the way the ancient Egyptians were showing it, at the end of your life, you are judged. And your heart is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, another feminine divinity of justice and morals. And Anubis was also present at the judgment, and Anubis is also Mercury. Okay. He's beautiful. Okay. So, this is what happens to really shitty souls. They are just thrown back, thrown to hell, and then thrown back into animal incarnations. If someone deserves going further, it means most of the karma left for them at this point is from the Gemini stage. Because the rest of it has already been dealt with, at least most of it. From the Aries stage of evolution, it's imperative that the karma the soul has from the Aries stage of evolution is purified through the Taurus stage of evolution. Now, the soul may get more karma through the Taurus stage. They will purify that in the crab stage. But it's imperative that the karma that is accumulated in the Aries stage is purified in the Taurus stage. You cannot go further without that. Because 90% of the time, souls will still collect karma through the Taurus stage. So, to just go further with that much of a load, no. Like I said, the next element is air. You can't. You need to be light. And beautiful as a soul. Okay. Then in the crab stage, the way you pay karma in the crab stage is by just being a beautiful parent and offering a beautiful childhood to your children. Literally, your children are instruments of karma for you. literally. And whether you deserve beautiful family life or you don't, that's exactly what you're gonna have. Sometimes, many times, a lot of souls will learn patience and tolerance, forgiveness, and love, unconditional love, in this particular stage of their evolution, because this is the first time they really have to integrate unconditional love. This is water. This is the element of water. They really have to understand unconditional love. They cannot go further without that. So that's why the focus of these lifetimes is parenthood, because that's the, like, it's a key, you know. It's your child. Obviously you will love them unconditionally. If you don't, it means you're just shit and you need to be thrown in hell. But throughout the course of these lifetimes, it's all about unconditional love through the lens of parenthood. I would say that water universally is about unconditional love, but the Scorpio stage of evolution is a little bit tricky when it comes to that. So primarily it's Crab and Pisces that are the stages of unconditional love. And lessons that you learn at different stages will have an echo, will actually have multiple echoes throughout the course of the other stages of the same element. So basically, Aries, it's a sign of the ego, it's a fire sign. You learn about yourself and you learn how to master yourself. Echoes of that, of those lessons and that mastery will be had in the Leo lifetimes and then the Sagittarius lifetimes. Similarly, things you learn in the Taurus segment of your soul evolution will have echoes throughout the Virgo lifetimes and primarily in the Capricorn lifetimes. That's a big one. Then the Gemini lessons. This is beautiful. This is basically the Gemini stage of evolution. You will carry this throughout the span of your whole lifetimes and not just lifetimes as a human. That's why the Gemini stage of evolution is so important. Like I said, one of the twins is mortal, the other is immortal. The things you learn here and the fact that this is the part of lifetimes where you expand your consciousness and you learn to integrate thought in your consciousness, you will carry that even beyond your human incarnations. That's beautiful. This is a gift. This is literally a gift of the gods for you as a soul. This particular stage of evolution, it's amazing. I love this. And again, like, so many connections you can have in this stage of evolution. I'm not just talking about connections with other people. I'm talking about connections with deities themselves. And the things you learn in the Gemini segment, they're everywhere because Gemini is about everything. The things you learn in the Crab segment of your lifetimes, they will have echoes again in mostly all of your lifetimes because it's all about unconditional love, but primarily in the Pisces segment of your lifetimes, when you are supposed to have unconditional love for every living being. This is the ultimate test. as a human. The Pisces realm of consciousness is just unconditional love. You have to experience the kind of love that divinity has. And the kind of love that divinity has is love for all living beings. Unconditional love. That's where you have to reach. So the first time you integrate that, really integrate that, is in the crab lifetimes. Because you have children and you really focus on that. And you really dive into the feelings you have for your children, the love you have for your children. And those lifetimes will be lifetimes when you really teach them, you really guide them, you really bring them up. And you really live with them, with the children. I'm not talking just living with them in the same house. But let's just say you sent them on a trip to Greece. And you're so happy for that. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful feeling. And not just this. These are lifetimes when you will learn kindness for the sake of kindness, not just for your children, but for others as well. Is the first stage of your soul evolution where you have water. Now, again, maybe you were a crab sun or moon in previous lifetimes that were part of the previous cycles of evolution. So you understood emotions from previous lifetimes. But this is a stage of evolution where you really dive into that, where you really integrate that into your being and you really master that. You really master kindness, just being kind, just becoming a kind, loving human being. And this is beautiful. I love this. Now, the video is already 2 hours and a half. It's already long enough. I'm out of battery. I will need to pause the video here, pause the lesson here, and continue in another video with the next segment, the next elemental cycle, starting with Leo and ending with Scorpio. Because again, we have fire, earth, air, water. So the first segment of lifetimes, it's basically a segment of stages of evolution that have a lot to do with the lower aspects of human life. When I say lower aspects of human life, I mean this is better said at the end of all the lessons about the stages of evolution, where you really see the comparison. But basically, this is all about me and my family, me and my thoughts, me and my family again, and me and my feelings and understanding feelings. So, it's the primary immediate things that you can experience as a human. And it makes sense, because these are the primary stages of human evolution, human soul evolution. In the next stages, you will see it gets bigger. You get to see the bigger picture in life. And the more you evolve, not only do you teach yourself, not only do you teach your children, but you will teach a lot of people. And ideally, you will become ascended masters. And why is this ascended master? Why, it's very wise that people use this term, because throughout each stage of evolution, you're supposed to master the lessons of that sign, the lessons of that spirit that are brought to you, so that you integrate those lessons and that type of consciousness into your being. So by the time you get out of the cycle of life and death as a human, you become an ascended master, because you will have already mastered all of those things and all of those realms of consciousness, all of those segments of human life and human consciousness, so that you afterwards can get into the next stages of evolution, next realms of consciousness, and next types of existence. But for now, we're gonna leave it here at the crab cycle of evolution. This is also a time when you connect to your ancestors a lot. And a time when, as I said, you're supposed to connect to Gaia a lot. And not just Gaia spiritually, but also Gaia physically. And understand your history. The moon and crab are energies that have a lot to do with the past. And many times it may be your family past, your ancestors, your roots. And a lot of souls actually choose to come incarnate multiple times in the same bloodline. So that's interesting to study and analyze. And yeah, get yourself a good psychic who can watch this video or these videos and learn about the stages of evolution and then tell you where exactly you're at. That'd be beautiful. If you watched this video and you watched all of it, thank you so much. It's quite an extensive piece of knowledge, but it's just amazing, and I love this, and I hope this piece of information reaches all the right people. I love you.